My name Jay Sleeves, and today, man, sorry for the setup. I got a new setup, room tour coming. But today, man, we got a reaction video today. You know what I'm saying? Do more reactions, Steve. But yeah. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Type shit. You heard me? And this first video is called True Deep Lake Horror Story Animated. Let's go, man.
I was conducting a recovery dive in the local lake for the police, recovering the body of some idiotic kid who hadn't worn his life jacket while drinking on a party boat. The lake was deep enough to require mixed gas to avoid narcosis. I followed all the normal protocols, keeping in contact with my diving partner and monitoring my dive computer. It doesn't take long to reach the bottom, but getting back up always takes much longer. My partner and I split up to cover more ground due to the extremely low visibility. It must have been about 5 minutes before I saw it. A human silhouette standing upright at the lake's bottom. I swam closer and found him perfectly preserved, without a sign of decay on his body. He was buried in silt up to his shins. It really looked like he could still be alive or had only been dropped into the water a few moments ago. I tied a line to him and started to head back up toward the surface so I could signal the boat to haul up the body. I swam up, letting the line play out behind me until I reached my first safety stop. While I was waiting for my body to decompress further, I noticed that the spool of the line was still being pulled out even though I had stopped. It was completely taut and unspooling at a blistering speed. It took me about half a second to realize that my reel was about to run out, and I was about to be pulled down by the line. There was a good 900 plus feet on my line, and the speed at which it was being reeled out was so tremendous that as soon as I grabbed it, my hand was spooled.
Boy, oh hell no, boy. This shit is not for the weak, my boy. For real. Bro, I don't even know why I'm doing this shit, bro. I don't even know why. Why am I doing this shit?
It almost completely open to the bone. In retrospect, that was a foolish thing to do, but it was just basic instinct to grab the rope and try to cut it with my knife. I then had a sudden burst of clarity and cut the straps holding the reel to my suit after a few seconds before the line ran out, causing it to vanish into the murky water. Within about half a second, I felt as if though the force of the whiplash alone would have been strong enough to break my back and kill me if I hadn't cut the straps. I was pretty shaken at this point. More shaken than I had been since I'd found my first dead kid. Nevertheless, I managed to ascend slowly and take my safety stops despite the pain, fear, and, of course, all the blood leaking out of my hand. It's a good thing this was a freshwater dive, or I might have been in real trouble on my way up. Anyway, my knee-jerk reaction, and what everyone else told me, was that it was narcosis-fueled hallucinations. Divers see all sorts of crazy things when narcosis kicks in. I've heard stories of fish and squid with human faces. Some guy swears that he was face-to-face with Cthulhu. My point is that narcosis is, to an extent, like temporarily being on DMT, and it can make you see some absolutely insane things. The only thing I could make sense of was how I got the cut on my hand. It's clearly from a rope. It's not clean enough to be from my knife.
I'm trying, man. I'm trying.
For any other sharp object. The doctor even noticed that I had friction burns all surrounding the cut. So what the heck caused the cut, if I was hallucinating? And if I wasn't hallucinating, what the heck dragged out a line that fast? What really keeps me up at night is that the guy was resting on the bottom of the lake, and my line was going straight down. So either he was pulled through the bottom of the lake, or something with incredible strength and speed grabbed my rope and was reeling me in like a fish. I'm not sure which scenario is worse.
Y'all can barely fuck see me, bitch. I'm too black. Alright, this second one is called The Showers by 1C Entertainment. Man. Alright, let's give me this. We always find a way back.
This is the story of a religious trip I took in the Philippines when I was 13 or 14 years old. My friends and I were staying in a 2-story building with lots of rooms in Manila. The view was nice, peaceful, and quiet. On our second day there, my friend Apple and I decided to head to the showers together.
Cause I was like, what the fuck? I thought shit was gonna happen already. I'm like, bro, what?
The showers in this building weren't in the rooms. They were in a large space where each person had their own cubicle to bathe in. Apple went into the first cubicle, and I went into the second. As we showered, I heard my friend Violet calling for us, asking where we were. I excitedly responded,
The fuck was that? Bro, I can't, bro. Okay, let's get into the video, cuz. Let's get into the video.
Apple's in the first cubicle and I am in the second one. You can occupy the third one. I was excited that Violet was joining us because at that age, the thought of us taking a bath together was fun. I heard the door next to me open, the shower curtain open, and the shower began to run. As I bathed, I had a conversation with Violet. We talked about typical teenager stuff. As I spoke, Apple called out to me from her stall. Hey, who are you talking to? I didn't think much of it. Maybe Apple couldn't hear Violet as well as I could with all the running water. I responded to Apple. Violet is here. She's in the third cubicle. Oh, okay, she replied. Now it was Apple, Violet, and I having a conversation. Next, I heard our friend Lila enter the bathroom, calling out to us. I told her where the three of us were and encouraged her to use the only remaining shower on the end. Same as with Violet, I heard the door, shower curtain, and water running. We continued to talk with each other for what seemed like a long time. Now, Violet asked if she could borrow my soap since she forgot hers. I said, Of course!
Nah, bitch, be the fuck for real. Bro, how the fuck you gon' I don't give a fuck if I have friends, but I'm finna know if it's you. I'm finna peep out the fucking shower to know if it's you, cuz. For real. There's some crazy-eyed people out here, man. But alright, let's go.
Then I tried to reach the wall above our cubicle since there was a space there. I was handing it to her, but she was not taking it. I said, Hey, Violet, here's your soap. No response. I waited for 5 seconds and no response. I shrugged and figured maybe she'd figured it out and didn't say anything. As I finished cleaning myself up, I called out, Hey, Violet, Lila, we will wait for you so that we can go back to our rooms together. Apple and I sat and waited for the other two. We could see the cubicle doors from where we were. The doors had this blurred glass, so you can't really see what's inside, but if someone moves around behind the glass, you can see their silhouette. As we sat there, not really talking, I got an odd feeling. That's when I realized that the bathroom we were in was completely silent. No running water sounds, no noise at all. I called out to the other two. No answer. I looked at Apple, who looked back bewildered. She shrugged. Worried that something might be wrong with my friends, I approached the door of the third cubicle. I lightly pushed on the door, expecting it to be locked, and it wasn't. A pit of fear grew in my stomach. The cubicle, which should be warm from the steam of the running shower, was cold. I closed my eyes and quickly pulled back the shower curtain. Sorry, Violet, I slowly opened my eyes as I spoke. I'm just worried about... I froze on the spot at what I saw, or rather, what I didn't see. The shower was empty and completely dry, like nobody had been there. I rushed out of there and went to the fourth cubicle. Same situation. It was dry, and Lila was nowhere to be found. I was trembling from fear at this point. Who had I been talking to? Did Violet and Lila already leave and I just didn't notice? I reached my shaky hand up to touch the shower head, expecting to feel water. Nothing. It was completely dry. There was no evidence at all that the shower had been used recently. I ran out of the cubicle and grabbed Apple. We ran to our room, and when we arrived, Violet was talking to another friend of ours. We asked her if she was just in the showers, and she insisted she was not. In fact, the people in the room confirmed that she really didn't leave the room. Next, we searched for Lila and found her eating in the cafeteria. We asked her the same question. Just like Violet, she insisted she was there the whole time. Apple and I looked at each other with horrified looks. Who needed the bar of soap? What was I hearing if it wasn't the shower running? And...
God, bro.
Scariest thought of all, what if someone had been watching me from the next cubicle all that time?
This third... this third creep... What the fuck you wanna call it? This fucking third... What's you call it? A horror story. Okay. This third horror story is called 3 True Creepy Stories Animated by Wancy Entertainment.
It's Michael's lowest prices of the season sale. Shop this store-wide event for up to...
I am from South Africa, and these are true stories of strange things that happened to my dad while traveling at night. 25 years ago, when my dad was 20, he and a good friend of his, Chris, were going to a funeral. They left the afternoon before the funeral and expected to arrive the next day early in the morning. It was 1 a.m., and it was Chris's turn to drive. For some reason, he decided to take a shortcut through the forest. It was so dark that they had to take their time as they drove to make sure they didn't miss a turn or hit anything that might be in the road. They came around the corner, and then my dad noticed it. Ahead of them, just at the limit of the headlights, there was a white figure walking toward the road from the forest.
Bitch! A white figure? Let's be so for real right now, bro.
Chris slowed the car down, and they both looked cautiously, trying to make out what the figure was as they got closer. It was a South African woman. She was absolutely beautiful and was wearing clean, white, Xhosa bridal attire. As she reached the edge of the road, she put her arm out and made the universal sign hikers use to say they need a ride. My dad and Chris were both confused, wondering why such a beautiful woman was standing on the side of the road in the middle of the forest at 1 a.m. As
This is 1 o'clock and you in the forest? Do not let her get in that car, man. For real.
the car got closer, my dad told Chris not to stop the car and keep on driving. Chris reassured him that he wouldn't be stopping the car. When the woman realized that the car was not stopping, she got closer to the road and leapt at the side of the car.
What? Why would she jump out of the car like that? Oh no, bro. People are crazy.
Chris tried to swerve and sped up a bit to prevent her from reaching the car.
What a nigga a racer? That bitch said, hold on, run up. No, I ain't gonna run it. Hell no, never mind.
Just then, they heard a thud on the window of the rear passenger door. My dad quickly looked back to see if maybe she had gotten hurt, but to his surprise, she was nowhere to be seen. She had completely disappeared. My dad and Chris looked at each other. Both were concerned, but weren't really sure what to think of the situation. They continued down the road in silence. That's when they smelled it, the overwhelming putrid smell of a rotting corpse.
My dad, having been to a morgue before to identify a family member that had passed away, knew that smell right away. My dad considered rolling down the windows, but because of what they just saw, he decided against it. Instead, he looked over at Chris, who looked back at him with fear in his eyes. My dad signaled Chris to get them out of there, fast. It wasn't long until they were out of the forest, and as soon as they left the tree line, the smell completely disappeared. Originally, they weren't speaking while in the forest because they didn't want to breathe the smell in their mouth. But neither of them dared speak a word until sunrise. My dad knows that woman was a ghost, but never got to know what happened to her though, or why she was there, haunting that forest. I was 4 years old when this story takes place. My parents and I drove from our home in Johannesburg to the Eastern Cape to visit my grandmother on my mother's side. It usually takes us half a day to get there, so we would often drive through the night. The Eastern Cape is one of the poorest provinces in South Africa, and so most people live in the mountains in these homes called rondavels. It's mostly farms that you come across as you travel through the area. It's terribly boring as things go. Fortunately, my grandmother did not live on one of these boring farms. She lived near the capital city in a town in the mountains just outside of the capital. The city wasn't massive by any means, and there were a few things to do, but not much. Often you hear about or see people practicing witchcraft, as this was an acceptable religion in the area. My family and I are believers in Christ, so we were grateful to him for keeping us safe whenever we went there. My dad was driving through Queenstown, where witchcraft is very prevalent, and it just happened to be around 3 a.m. as we passed through. My mother and I were asleep. As he drove down the road that led out of town, he noticed a tall, skinny figure ahead of him on his side of the street.
Whoa!
This figure was...
I'm over here barking and shit? Damn. Bro. A tall, skinny figure? Nah, man. Nah.
So tall and was far enough away that he couldn't see a face clearly. It was unclear even what gender the being was. The being had a huge afro, and its skin was extremely pale. As the car, a brand new BMW X5, passed this thing, the thing started running alongside...
No! Nope. No.
The car on his side. My dad was freaked out and decided to drive a bit faster.
Why are you running like that?
No matter how fast he drove, the thing...
I'm so sorry, y'all, but... Nah.
kept running next to the car, and there was no way a normal human being could keep up with him as he drove like that. It kept following, so he kept speeding up, going so fast you'd think he was a Formula One racer. Still, this thing kept up with the car. Suddenly, the thing slowed down, and my dad, who was still trying to put distance between him and the thing, saw it watching the car from his rearview mirror. My dad fortunately remembered that he was quickly approaching a sharp turn and slowed down in time. This really freaked him out. If he had kept driving as fast as he was around that turn, then we surely would have crashed. That's when he realized that being was after us. It wanted us to have a car accident and die. To this day, my dad believes that thing was a zombie. I was around...
A zombie out of all things, but
6 years old when these two very strange events happened in one night. We were on our way through Eastern Cape. Around 11 p.m., I was asleep in the back seat, and my dad noticed the car was running low on petrol. Luckily, my dad spotted a garage, which is...
you mean to say petrol? I ain't never heard no shit in my life like that.
also a gas station before we ran out. We've done this trip a number of times, but my dad insisted that he'd never seen this garage before. What was even weirder is that it was in the middle of nowhere.
The fuck?
Where Standing outside of this garage was a group of 8 ladies in uniforms. We recognized the uniforms as church uniforms, which is a common attire in some churches in South Africa. Unlike most places, this garage didn't have employees to pump the petrol into the car for you. This struck my dad as odd. He went inside to pay and then came back out to fill the car. As he was filling the car, he glanced in the direction of the church ladies and realized that they had...
Wow! It's the music, dog. Bro, they can't be doing that. Look at that little tall motherfucker in the back.
moved closer to our car compared to where they were when we first pulled in. What was weird about that is that he didn't hear any footsteps prior to that. He turned back to the car for a moment, and when he glanced to see if they were still getting closer, he was face to face with one of the church ladies.
Act like you're made of steel, but you're not.
She stared deep into his eyes with her eyes wide as if she was possessed. She started loudly speaking a language he could not understand, which is very weird because my dad knows every language in South Africa. There are 11 of them. My mother saw what was happening, but she was trembling with fear in the car, uncertain of what to do, and frozen in her seat. The woman started speaking faster. While this was going on, the other ladies were getting closer and closer to the car and were starting to form a circle around the car, but they were completely silent. Suddenly, the woman who was chanting who knows what looked into the car and directly at me. I was still passed out in the back seat. My father describes the way she looked at me as evil. While the lady seemed distracted looking at me, my father quickly finished pouring the petrol and drove off. As we pulled out of the station, my mother looked out the back window and the ladies were gone.
Whoa!
My dad is sure that those ladies were witches dressed as church ladies to make themselves look harmless. The second incident happened around 5 a.m. when we were just about an hour away from my grandmother's house. By this time, my dad had been driving all night and was very sleepy. He said that he closed his eyes for 1 second, and the next thing he saw was a sign saying, "Welcome to Jamestown." My father was extremely shocked by this because we had passed Jamestown 3 hours ago. What's even weirder is that we arrived to my grandmother's place 4 hours later, as if our car had somehow teleported back to Jamestown. It was on that day my father decided to change what time we left our home to go to my grandmother's. He was determined to avoid driving through that area at night ever again. This also helped my grandmother, who would call and check on us through the night, more and more frequently the closer we got, and that meant she didn't sleep all night, and instead prayed for us while we were on the road. Her phone calls really helped my dad stay awake. Sadly, my grandmother died when I was 9. She'll be terribly missed by the family. As for my dad, I can safely say I think he'd rather forget the strange and terrifying things that happened late at night in the eerie countryside of Eastern Cape.
A tropical smoothie cafe. Mango is a move.
Video. My name's Jay Sleeves. If you don't know, if you're new to the channel, subscribe, like, and comment. You did? Alright. I'm gonna catch y'all in the next one. Peace.